Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Bevi alla coppa della follia per non essere più svergognato. Bevi alla coppa della follia per non essere più svergognato. Chiudi al cibo, chiudi gli occhi di carne per vedere l'occhio segreto. Chiudi gli occhi di carne per vedere l'occhio segreto. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Apri generoso le braccia, se desideri abbracci. Apri generoso le braccia, se desideri abbracci. Frantuma i feticci di terra, se vuoi vedere idoli belli. Frantuma i feticci di terra, se vuoi vedere idoli belli. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. L'amato s'aggira di notte, non dormire tu la notte. L'amato s'aggira di notte, non dormire tu la notte. Chiudi al cibo la bocca per gustare in bocca dolcezza. Chiudi al cibo la bocca per gustare in bocca dolcezza. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Promettente il coppiere, vi è un circolo nella sua festa. Promettente il coppiere, vi è un circolo nella sua festa. Entra nel circolo e siedi fino a quando guardare i cerchi del tempo. Entra nel circolo e siedi fino a quando guardare i cerchi del tempo. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Ecco un sicuro guadagno da una vita e prendine 100. Ecco un sicuro guadagno da una vita e prendine 100. Smetti di fare il lupo e il cane, prova la grazia del pastore. Smetti di fare il lupo e il cane, prova la grazia del pastore. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Non pensare a nulla, ma solo a chi ha creato il pensiero. Non pensare a nulla, ma solo a chi ha creato il pensiero. Meglio è pensare alla vita che preoccuparsi per il cibo. Meglio è pensare alla vita che preoccuparsi per il cibo. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Taci e più non parlare, che tu possa sentire il supremo discorso. Taci e più non parlare, che tu possa sentire il supremo discorso. Lascia la vita e il mondo e contempla la vita del mondo. Lascia la vita e il mondo e contempla la vita del mondo. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. Fatti simile ai santi per provare i piaceri dell'anima. Entra nella via della taverna per vedere gli ebri del santo vino. So we continue with this beautiful song by Maulana Rumi. The poetical talent of Maulana Rumi has been one of the most special of all the history of mysticism. He is understood as one of the most extraordinary mystical poet of all times. And there have been so many Sufi masters who have been great, but no one is compared to him, just because of his beautiful poetry, and maybe because of the method which he put in action, that of the willing dervishes. So in Islam is let's say is the second figure after Muhammad. And it's always very inspiring to read his poetry, because the way he talks about love for God, love for his master, Shams Tabriz, is really unique, very special, very inspiring. Bausawan Singh was also very fond of the poetry of Maulana Rumi, and Master Kirpal as well. It is said that Master Kirpal studied Persian in order to read the Masnavi in its original language. So even among the Sant masters, Maulana Rumi is very loved, very appreciated. And in all the mystical cycles, he is loved and appreciated. There are some masters from the past with whom we can be especially in tune, connected. And for me, is one of those very few ones, I must say. I'm not so much clinging to the masters of the past, except for those of my lineage. But there are some few figures that I love in a very special way, and with whom I feel spiritually connected. And Maulana Rumi is one of those, maybe the most special for me. I've been in Konya for 10 days, for a week, once. And the spiritual perception I had at this mausoleum dedicated to Maulana Rumi, where his tomb is located, it was really very powerful, very special. Just like being in the presence of my masters. Just because there is a very subtle spiritual connection with him. And if you will, my poetry is very similar to his poetry. Not because I try to imitate him, but just because it comes like this. And there are many affinities in the lifestyle also. He used to fast 2 days every week. And I've done it for so many years. And I keep doing it. At least, if I start eating again. So in this beautiful song, we continue with this strophe in which he says, promising it is the cupbearer. There is a cycle in his feast. Come into this cycle and sit down. Why keep looking to the cycles of time? So this cycle about which he is talking about is Satsang. When we sit in the presence of the Master, cup bearer, or the jar. That's another way in which the Master is represented, as the jar that fills up the cups. So when we sit in Satsang, we see to be filled by the grace of God coming through the Master. And we should be like an open cup that wants to be filled. That it's open. And to be open, it means not to have obstruction of any thoughts. Because to be an empty cup, it means not to have thoughts. To be attentive, to be present, to be open, with no preconcepts, with no ideas, theories. Master Kirpal, when he gave his satsang, he often said, when you go to the satsang of a master, don't go to compare what he says with what you know. Just sit and listen. Don't keep comparing, because otherwise you're just stuck in your mind. Again, in your thoughts, in your beliefs, in your convictions. And you're not able to raise above. And beside meditation, satsang is a way of tuning in. If you're really present, focused, concentrated during satsang, it's like meditation. You can have the most wonderful experiences during satsang. That's how it was for me with my masters. When I listened to their satsang, I had wonderful experiences because I was so focused on what they were doing and saying, focused on their face, focused on their eyes, and I wouldn't look at anything, I wouldn't look at anybody. I would just keep staring all the time, their face, their eyes, and sometimes from very far. Many times I didn't understand anything of what they were saying. When I was listening to the satsang of Master Kirpal, I didn't understand English at the time, so I didn't understand what he was saying. But for me it was not important what he was saying. For me it was important to just keep looking into his face and into his eyes. Then everything would disappear at times. I would just be completely one with him in his light. And with Sanji also, there were programs, like when he gave programs in Bombay or Bangalore. I attended these programs, Ahmedabad, in which he would speak just in Punjabi. And actually nobody understood him there, because we Westerners didn't understand him, because we didn't understand Punjabi, obviously. And people of those areas, Indian areas, they didn't speak Punjabi. So very few understood him at all. Just those who had come with him, maybe from Punjab or from Rajasthan. But the local people didn't understand him. So it's beyond words. What may happen during satsang goes beyond words. But we have to be well focused, well attentive. So Rumi here says, come, sit down, in this cycle? Why keep looking to these cycles of time? Transcending time is transcending the mind. Mind, it's an agent of time. That's how time manifests in this world. Because there is mind. There is no mind, there is no time. When we transcend the mind, then automatically we lose track of time. And a few minutes, maybe an hour, or an hour, maybe a few minutes. So masters always invite us to try to raise above this thinking process. The mind is a helping factor to a certain point, and then it becomes a great impediment. It's a helping factor for understanding certain things. But when we get stuck into the mind and we don't go beyond, then it's an impediment. It's a big wall. It's a great wall. And all the spiritual practice, in all the traditions, it's all meant for this, transcending the mind. All the prayers, all the singing of holy songs, all the meditation techniques, they're just meant for this, transcending this thinking process. So we have to do our best. We have to have this natural inclination, wanting above everything else to overcome this common human condition. We must have a longing for something extraordinary in life, which transcends this banal, empty life. So we go to retreat for the Master, to sit with him and to try our best to overcome this ordinary life, this ordinary state of consciousness, so as to experience something higher, something deeper, more meaningful, more beautiful. Then he says, here is a safe gain. Give a life and earn 100. Stop being a wolf or a dog. Experience the grace of the shepherd. And that's what happens when we transcend this individuality, this sense of I. We give up a life to gain 100 or 1,000. Transcend this sense of ego, of I-ness, to achieve union with the divine, with the over self, so as to expand our perception of reality. So that's what we That's what we want. That's what we have to realize. Transcending this small personality to which we are so much attached, and become a broad personality, a vast personality that englobes the whole universe. This is what naturally happens when we leave the body at the time of death. But we want to experience it before dying. We don't want to wait the end of this life to experience this great something, to have this great experience. We want to experience at least to a certain level, to a certain point, this kind of possibility. And that's the difference between ordinary human beings and spiritual beings. That should be the difference. That we are not just happy with this, and we do our best to transcend this condition. Otherwise, we are spiritual people just by name, not by fact. Being spiritual means tuning in with the Holy Spirit of God. And for doing so, we have to do our spiritual practice. It might come by grace. Sometimes it does. It comes by grace. But it doesn't come always. When it comes by grace, it comes to encourage us, to show us that there is this possibility. Now you have been shown that there is this possibility, so you take initiation, learn the practice, and keep doing it. Now try to bring it into your life by yourself. So usually when we come on the spiritual path in the beginning, we are given a lot of grace, a lot of upliftment, a lot of help. But then gradually this withdraws from us. Because God wants us to grow, wants us to be able to reach there through our own means. It's like with a child. You, when he's small, the child, you help him in all possible ways. Beginning to walk, beginning to eat, beginning to do things in life. But then when he grows and is capable of doing his own things, then you leave him alone. Just go your way. Live your life. So also God does the same with us. In the beginning, it helps us begin to move on this path. So lots of experiences, lots of upliftment. And then by and by this is withdrawn to everybody. Then we have to be able to get there with our own means, with our own efforts, with a disciplined life. And if we give it up, because it's not as easy as before anymore, then it's our loss. It's we the loser. God doesn't lose anything. Doesn't need us. It's we that need Him. So we have to do our best. Keep the practice. Find means and ways to attract His grace, to attract His attention towards us. And anyway, then we go to retreats. Those are the best times. Those are the best moments in our spiritual life. Because during retreats, there is a special blessing always. To meditate with the Master, to come in that cycle, as Rumi said in the previous strophe, it's always a blessing. It's what makes it possible to tune in again and experience the what we like, the what makes us fulfilled spiritually. So one should never miss the chance of going to a retreat, because there's the high point, high time in our spiritual practice, in our spiritual life. But we people follow our mind again, and we invent stories, problems, because of which I can go to the retreat, we can go to the retreat. It's not exactly convenient for me, because I have to sleep with other people, because of this, because of that. We invent so many stories. I want the private room, I want the private toilet. So my dear, an ashram is not like this. An ashram is a situation in which you have to live a commune life, in which you have to use things in common. I must say, nowadays the people who relate to me, they are very fussy and very demanding. At the time of Sanji, it was very different. When Sanji came here for programs, people were staying in caravans, and they felt to be so luxury to be in caravans, because many others were staying in tents. And all those beds which are down there in the lady's house, they were all full. And those who had a bed to sleep, even on top, they felt so lucky. Because for many people it was not allowed to be indoors. They had to be in tents or in caravans if they could pay for it. They had to bring it for themselves. But there were so many caravans here when Sanji came. And we also rented big tents like this one, in which like 50 people would sleep. There were all the Spanish Satsangis. They came. There were some 40, 50 of them, I don't remember exactly. They were sleeping all in a tent like this, which we rented. So, I mean, the possibility of going to a retreat with the Master, we should not get stuck into these personal needs. It should be a superior need, the one of just being with the Master, and all the rest is secondary. In 1974, I went to India to attend this retreat with Master Kirpal. There were so many thousands of people, and Master Kirpal ashram was very small, it was not a big ashram. There was a Satsang meditation room in which some maybe 500 people could fit, because we were 500 coming from the west only. And it was really jam-packed, this room. And we had to sit really one sticking to the other in order to have a small space. But we sat there 2-3 hours in the morning, 2-3 hours in the afternoon, meditating, all of us together. And in the night, when the program was over, then Indian people went to sleep inside, just on the floor like this. They just brought some beddings for themselves. And some others were sleeping under the tents, just outside. And it was February. And in Delhi, February is cold. So, to be in the company of the Master, one must be ready for everything. When we went to Rajasthan ashram of Sanji was very simple ashram, really very There were these big rooms, like maybe 10, 12 people could sleep in a room, bed one beside the other. Toilets were a hole in the ground with a wall beside. And we were sometimes 70, 80, 100, 120 of us. Like this. But we were all so happy to be with our master. And here I hear people, no, this is not available, so I don't come. What is this? That's not of my liking, so I don't come. Like this we get nowhere in life, in spiritual life. We just keep limiting ourselves. More and more limits, so you become very limited. Anyway, then he says, do not think of anything, of anybody, but of the one who has created the thinking. Better is to think about life than to worry about food, things of life. So the invitation is always the same. Stop thinking as much as possible. Thinking is a cruel enemy that makes us worry, anxious, always being elsewhere than where we actually are. Because thinking is always about the past and about the future. Never about now. So Rumi says, don't think of anything. Stop thinking. Just think about the one who has created the thinking. Because if you think about this reality, then you attract this reality to yourself. As you think, so you become. Think of God, you become God. Don't worry about life. Seek you first of all the kingdom of God. All the rest will be given to you. So, if you say to a person, do a constant Simran, the person will say, but if I don't think about my needs, about what I have to do, how will I manage? What will happen to me? How will I deal with life? Well, it's not like this. If one busies himself, herself, with doing a constant Simran, then those thoughts which are needed, those things which are really needed, they just come as an intuition. And they come in such a clear way. It won't come from thinking, an obsessive thinking. It comes just like an intuition, a very bright intuition. So which is the way of stop thinking and thinking about the one who has created the thinking. It's repeating his holy names, doing Simran. Keep calling on him. And then all what you need, it will come just by itself. You just step into another perception of things, another reality or dimension, in which things do happen by themselves. You don't need to worry about it. What's really needed, it just happens by itself. And what is not needed, it just doesn't happen. But very often we make happen things which are not needed. And we are not able to make happen those things which are really needed. Because of our anxieties, because of our worry. So we should try our best, at least from time to time, to dive deeply into the practice and experience another level of consciousness for ourselves. Otherwise it's always something that other people talk about, other people experience, we don't. Do not worry about what you're going to eat, the way you're going to dress, the way you're going to... It will come, it will be given to you. If you seek with all your heart God's realization. Then at the end it says, be silent, talk no more, so that you might hear the supreme discourse. Live the life and the world and contemplate the light of the world. So any talking, even the most inspired talking that we do, is nothing in comparison with the talking that comes from silence. That comes when we are tuned in with God's presence. The most enlightening words are nothing in comparison. So eventually, God is peace, God is silence. And in silence, God talks to us. But not just silence from noises or from words, inner silence from thoughts. So let's try to take it easy as much as we can. Not to worry about life. Not think too much about anything. Better you sing a song than thinking about and worrying about this or that. When your mind obsesses you with thoughts, then sing a song. It makes it so much easier, so much better. Sing the Simran, sing a bhajan. So God talks to us when we are in really deep silence. silence in the mind. Leave the life and the world and contemplate the light of the world. So as I said, this is a very beautiful poem by Rumi. This is a poem to which I gave this melody. I made it into a song. It's just a poem. Many, many years ago. There was a time in which I became obsessed with poetry, Rumi's poetry. And some I liked them very much, so I touched a melody. And this is one of them. So we thank Maulana Rumi for this very beautiful poem from the very deep teachings that are contained in it, and for inspiring these two beautiful satsang, that of yesterday and that of today. We take the teachings to our heart and we try to implement them in our life. Above all, as Master Kripal used to say, let's go jolly. Take it easy. Do your best and take it easy.